Charles Koch says, "Have you met billion-dollar Brad yet?" And I said, "Billion-dollar Brad? What's a billion-dollar Brad?" He said, "You haven't met him yet. Come on along. You got to meet billion-dollar Brad." So we take the elevator down a couple of floors. We come to a cubicle farm that's got 800 cubicles, the biggest cubicle farm I've ever seen in my life. And we finally come to this cubicle, and Charles goes, "Hey, Brad, billion-dollar Brad, you in there?" And this little face pops up from the cubicle. The guy who comes up from the cubicle, I mean, he looks like an angel. He looks like he's never shaved. Little pink cheeks, corn-fed, out there in the Midwest. He looks, stand up. Stand up. He looks just like you without glasses. I mean, he looks just so beautiful and angelic. Like, you know, like the cherub from the Hallmark store. And Charles said, "That's my billion-dollar Brad." He said, "Jason, last year when Brad was 25, he made a $4 billion decision and committed our company for $4 billion. And I said, "Charles, why would you let a 25-year-old kid make a $4 billion decision?" He said, "Jason, if the only people in an organization who get to make decisions are the big, old, chubby executives sitting up in their big corner offices, out of touch with the marketplace," he said, "the organization's not going to grow." Here's the magic. He said, "Decisions have to be made by the people with the knowledge." And he said, in this instance, Brad had more knowledge than anybody in the company to make that decision. And I looked at him and I said, "But Charles, $4 billion, what if it had been the wrong decision?" He looked at me and he said, "We would have had a pretty poopy year." Then he added, "Think of how much Brad would have learned about decision making if it had been the wrong decision." Always been absolutely fascinated by your industry. Secondly, when I had a conversation with C.C. Thompson about you, the group, and about the agenda, it was the best delivered and best prepared conversation that I've ever had in my life, and I thought, I really am going to like these people. And then last night, it's like I've known some of you for 15 or 20 years. Everybody is just, well, it was probably the booze that helped, but I mean, everybody is so happy. These companies have figured out who their right customer is and then set out to systematically, not satisfy them, but exceed the expectations of the right customer. For example, this study has been replicated. You'll find it all over my website. It's been replicated scores of times. I promise you, 2/3 of all people who stop doing business with you will describe themselves as being satisfied. Clearly, being satisfied is no longer enough in this maddening world we live in to act as a precursor of an intention to repurchase. At some point in your career, have been involved in the creation of a mission statement. Would you raise your hands? Now, is that a waste of time or what? Honest to God. A group of the special people are selected. They take a couple of cases of beer and a cheap cardboard box of wine, retire to a lakeside cabin for a weekend to come up with this damn mission statement. And here's the good part. While they're half in the bag, they come up with some good stuff. I think we ought to be doing this. But of course, the booze runs out on Saturday night. Sunday morning, they know they need to nail down this mission statement. So they cobble together something that's politically correct, will not offend anyone, hopefully aspirational. They take it back, run it through the laser printer, hang it on the wall, print it on the business cards. And let me ask you, say it aloud. What changes as a result of the new mission statement? Say it. Nothing. It has been a ridiculous management indulgence. For years, General Motors had had a brand, Oldsmobile, which had been circling the drain, as we all know. And General Motors used to spend $100 million a year advertising Oldsmobile. 5 years ago, they said, well, you know what we're going to do? We're not going to spend $100 million in advertising. We're going to spend $500 million in advertising, and we're going to come up with a phrase that will make people rush out and buy Oldsmobiles. Now, does everybody remember what that phrase was? It's what? It's not your father's Oldsmobile. Duh. We knew that. It was grandfather's Oldsmobile.
Who but an old fart would drive an Oldsmobile, for God's sake? And General Motors wasted $500 million of my money and your money if you were a shareholder in General Motors because they couldn't let go of yesterday's breadwinner. Words are accessible. Do you know that the CEOs of every one of these companies, including Charles Koch, have listed home telephone numbers? Listed home telephone numbers. And I was sitting down with one of them saying, now why in the world would you have a telephone number in the phone book? You're the CEO of a huge company. He said, well, what are telephone books for? And I said, I know, but you're an important person. Don't you get a lot of calls at home? He said, no. He said, I get a call from an employee once in a while who feels they haven't been given a fair shake. He said, but hell, we're trying to hold on to people, not lose them. I mean, if I can help save somebody, I'm happy to do that. And he said, Jason, he said, maybe you're unclear on the concept, but the only other person to ever call me at home would be a customer, and guess what? We're always trying to find more of those. And I would like to get a group of incredible entrepreneurs like you on my website tomorrow morning. And for any of you who have any degree of vanity, like I do, I just want to point out, these pictures are going to be plastered around the world, and people do look 20 pounds heavier sitting down than they do standing up. Randy, you can lead it. God bless you. Today, they are the largest catalog merchant in the world. They will mail about 165 million catalogs this year. What a wonderful bunch of people. They are the only company in the world who have grown their earnings per share 20% annually for 42 years without missing a beat. During the past 11 years, they've taken the time it takes to make a ton of steel from 11 hours to 30 minutes. You said you want to be better leaders. You said you wanted to be better managers. You said you wanted to grow your business. Let me ask you a question. Do you think there might be something to learn from Jim and Dick Cabela? Yes or no? Do you think there might be something to learn from Mary and Sandler at World Savings? Yes or no? And do you think there might be something to learn from Dan D'Amico at Nucor Steel? Yes or no? All right.